Christmas is so important that it is one of only 2 holy days that not only get a season, but also an octave. 8 days of intense celebration. But what is an octave? Who cares about octaves? And what's special about the Christmas octave? Welcome to Ignition. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwald, and we want to set your faith ablaze so that you might live the adventure that comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. Before we get into the Christmas octave, we want you, well, we're already in it actually, but before we talk about the Christmas octave, we want you to know that we love listener feedback. So if you've got questions about today's episode, or if you have ideas for future episodes, please contact us. The easiest way to do it is by email, and the address is no, that's not true. Ignition at sfcatholic.org. Ignition at sfcatholic.org. No, bishop at sfcatholic is not Bishop DeCruz.
That does not exist.
It's not real. The communications department doesn't want, you wouldn't get the emails because they wouldn't come through.
It would go nowhere.
So who is this voice or this face, depending how you're consuming this episode of Ignition, that I see and hear?
I am Chris's lovely co-host.
Sidekick?
Can I say that? Sidekick? Ooh.
Sidecar. I'm driving the motorcycle.
I'm
You're
in the
just
sidecar.
like, what's going
Screaming.
on? Yes,
Screaming.
most of the time.
I am Renae Kranz. I am the interim director for communications for the diocese. I am married to Ryan for 18 years. Let's see. Tell you some different things in case you've heard us before.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about commutes today.
Okay, fine. Ryan is an architect.
Oh, yeah.
We are both from Watertown originally, up in the northeast part of the state. We have a cat. Woo!
Thanks for sharing, Renae. It's good to have you on Ignition today. If you've never tuned in before, I'm Dr. Chris Bergwald, the Director of Adult Discipleship and Evangelization with the Diocese of Sioux Falls. Been in that role since 2002. Been in the role of husband since 1999 to Jermaine. She's from Ohio. I'm from central Minnesota, but all 5 of our great kids are born and raised here in eastern Sioux Falls. Well, eastern South Dakota. Sunny Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Merry Christmas, Renae.
Merry Christmas.
How was your Christmas?
My Christmas was awesome, as always.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the weather was like
Yeah,
yet, but
there was weather on Christmas. So we're recording a little bit before because I don't think either of us are in the office today.
No.
So what I thought we'd talk about today, do you know, actually, we're not blowing up the script.
Okay.
But we're going to have a real conversation for once on Ignition.
As opposed to the usual
fake
when we don't.
Scripted. Hi, my name is Chris.
Thank goodness we don't do that.
Do you know anything about octaves? Not in music. Well, maybe you don't in music either. But with regard to church, Christianity,
probably only a very surface knowing, as most people do, that there's some days after Easter and there's some days after Christmas that are called octaves.
How many?
Well, you said at the beginning 8, so I'm going to go with that.
You were listening or reading,
listening.
one of the two.
I was listening.
But which does reflect the musical, right? I don't know if you ever sang or played an instrument, but
I played the drums.
Oh, you don't know anything about octaves, then, right?
Oh, I know how to read music.
Right? Do.
No, I know how to read music. I sang in choir and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I know how to read music.
So there's 8 notes in an octave,
Yeah.
right? So an octave in terms of days is 8 days long. Do you have something else you want to say? Because I
was going to tell Bill we need to start over because he's irritating me.
He keeps looking over like, what? Okay. So Christmas, as I said at the open, is one of only 2 technically solemnities, 2 of the high feast days in the year that have octaves. There are actually, what do you think the 3? Let's try to go in order here.
Okay.
Guess. There are 3 of the most important holy days in the church year. What do you think the 3 most important holy days are?
I would think they are the Immaculate Conception, Christmas, and Easter.
Okay. Close-ish.
But no cigar.
I
I got 2 out of the 3 right.
So Easter, and actually really it's the Triduum, which starts Holy Thursday.
But Thursday and Friday, Holy Thursday and Good Friday are not holy
but
days
they
of obligation.
they're not, no, correct, but they're kind of all one great
Yes.
solemnity, kind of. So Easter, Christmas, and then third actually is Pentecost.
Oh, of course.
The Holy Spirit's not too happy with you right now.
I'm
He's
sorry.
Like, really? You forgot about me?
I was thinking about Jesus's home for
Right.
9
that's,
months.
yeah, there we go.
That's what I was thinking about.
That's nice. Actually, in our country, the Immaculate Conception, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, is the patronal feast. That's why, as we discussed back on the 7th of December, that's why it's always obligatory.
Right.
No matter when it falls. Okay. So those are the 3 highest in that order: Easter, Christmas, and the Pentecost. Pentecost, interestingly, up until Vatican II, also had an octave.
Oh.
But part of the liturgical reforms afterwards, it went away.
Why? No.
I don't know.
I found something Chris doesn't know.
I would love for it to come back, to be honest. I think a lot of people would, because it is the 3rd greatest.
Because right now, Pentecost just kind of comes and goes.
Exactly. It ends Easter,
Yeah.
Easter season, and the next day is ordinary time.
Right.
We're going to talk about ordinariness, actually, next week, but stay tuned for that.
Okay.
So Christmas and Easter have an octave. An octave in church parlance means that starting with the day of the feast, that plus the next 7 days, so for those 8 days, that quote unquote feast, solemnity technically, is so important that we're going to spend 8 days celebrating it. Now, the Christmas and Easter octaves are a little bit different. The Easter octave basically pushes everything out of the way. So all their feast days that might fall on March or April, whatever.
Like saints' feast days and stuff like that?
Other feast days, yeah. So if they fall on during Holy Week or Easter week, but the Easter octave, they're not celebrated.
Okay.
They're trumped by the Easter octave. That's not the case with the Christmas octave. The Christmas octave has saints' feast days that are proper to it, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit.
So it's not just because Easter is always at a different time,
No.
but Christmas is static.
Stays the same. No, correct.
Okay.
It's because Easter is the highest feast, so its octave trumps all other feasts because it's the highest. Christmas is second highest, but it retains some feasts as part of its octave. But in both cases, we see the Gloria is sung and the Creed is recited at every Mass in the octave.
Okay.
That's
Even the weekday.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Because of its importance. Okay. Questions at this point? Anything?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Why do we care?
Why do we care? I'm going to turn that around on you.
Fine.
Please
fine,
tell
that's
me.
fair.
I don't know.
So, if we're going to enter into, we should enter into the full joy of Christmas. We should fully celebrate Christmas. And so by understanding some of these liturgical minutia, we're understanding more about what Christmas is. And kind of my mantra lately, the more you understand, the more you can love or do something better.
So you're saying we shouldn't tear open the presents and then throw the tree out the front door and be done?
Please no.
Okay, good.
Now I understand if the needles are falling off, if you've got a real tree and it's been
about
up
to start
since
fire.
Thanksgiving. And
Right.
the Christmas season lasts until the baptism of the Lord, which is the second, usually the second Sunday of January.
Right.
That's the Christmas season. Then you've got the 12 days of Christmas, which take us up to traditionally Epiphany.
Right.
Why are you looking at the notes?
I don't know.
So
Trying
there's
to
the
see where
season.
you're going.
There's the season. There's the 12 days, which lead us to
When do they start? Christmas Day?
yeah.
Okay.
And it goes up until the traditional date of Epiphany, January 6th. But then we have the octave, and I think the octave gets lost. So what I'm saying is, if we're going to take the feast, take Christmas as seriously as we are invited to by the church, it's important to understand that Christmas not only has a season or 12 days, but actually has its own octave or 8 days as well.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So what I want to do is just walk through the octave just a little bit. Some of the details. So the day after Christmas, because you have the notes. Do you know what the feast, what saint we celebrate the day after Christmas?
The day after Christmas?
Yes.
No. I should, because I've looked at it on the calendar about 1,000,000 times for topics for stuff.
Right. It's Saint Stephen.
Oh, that's right.
Who's Saint Stephen?
Is Stephen the martyr?
The day after we celebrate the birth of the little baby Jesus, we celebrate the stoning of Saint Stephen.
The apostle, right?
What?
Was he
He's
apostle
not
or
apostle.
a disciple?
Deacon.
Oh, right. Okay.
Why?
Yeah, really.
Oh, cuddly
You would think that would be like
cuddly
Saint
Jesus.
Nicholas the day after. Yeah.
Stoning and but before we get into on the 27th of December, any idea whose feast day we celebrate then?
No.
Saint John.
Okay.
The apostle and the evangelist.
Okay.
What happened to Saint John?
He was not martyred.
But he was exiled.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So he suffered persecution. But he was not, you're right, he wasn't martyred.
Right.
December 28th. What feast day? No idea. The Holy Innocents.
Oh, I know that one.
Well, who are they?
They are
Me, myself,
no, like
I.
things like babies who died in miscarriage, abortion.
More specifically, actually.
Is it more specific? Because that's all thrown into that. I know.
It often, yes, it usually is.
Okay, so now I don't know.
All those 2-year-old or younger baby boys who were killed by Herod in Bethlehem.
Okay. So then they just kind of include that has become
Other people that sort of
expanded
becomes
as it.
Yeah, so sort of how St. Luke's feast day is traditionally the day where we celebrate doctors. He's a patron of physicians. St. Luke's day becomes a day for that. Well, the feast of the Holy Innocents is about those 2-year-old boys in Bethlehem.
Sure.
When Jesus was born, but it's kind of they became in a
Encompasses
sense
some-
patrons for those others.
Okay.
So who again? 26th, 27th, or 28th.
So Saint Stephen, Saint John, and the Holy Innocents.
So what do they all have in common?
I don't know.
They all were persecuted
For the
in
faith.
bearing witness to Jesus Christ
Sure. Okay.
in some way.
In
So-
different ways.
Yes, in different ways. So Stephen knowingly gave his life for Jesus. John gave his life, but not to the point. He
death,
consciously followed Jesus Christ. He gave his life to Jesus, but not to the point of death. The Holy Innocents gave their lives to the point of death, but not consciously.
Right.
So you sort of have so the first day after Christmas, we get the prototypical martyr, the person, the man in this case, who knowingly and willingly gave his life for Jesus Christ. But in the next 2 days, we see another man, and then a whole group of boys who in different ways bear witness to Jesus Christ. So even though it seems like, well, that's kind of a Debbie Downer way to follow up Christmas, it's all about bearing witness to Jesus, who himself, of course, would ultimately die, not as a martyr, but for the salvation of the world. Why isn't Jesus a martyr?
Because he.
Do you know?
I was going to say because he gave himself up willingly, but that's what martyrs do usually. So, I don't know.
A martyr is one who bears witness to Jesus.
Oh, well, and Jesus was Jesus.
Jesus is Jesus, so he doesn't really. Exactly. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, so that's the first 3 days after Christmas.
Okay.
If you're just tuning in, I'm Dr. Chris Bergwald, visiting today with
Renae Kranz.
the
best.
Do you have to think about that? Like, did you have to consult your
Like,
notes?
you have a dramatic pause.
Who am I? Oh, Renae. Oh, the dramatic. Is that what that was? You snoozed there for a half second, I think. No. And we are visiting today on Ignition about the Christmas octave, which we are, if you're listening to this when it's airing on the radio, we're in the middle of the octave. Today is the 28th of December, which we just discussed, Renae, is
The Holy Innocents.
the Feast of the Holy Innocents. Right. So, the 29th and 30th. Now, again, there's a Sunday that falls in here, typically. Not always, but typically. We're not talking about that Sunday, though. Right. So the 29th and 30th are just days within the octave. The 31st has an optional memorial This always, I like, I'm going to look this up before ignition today because I'm not going to quiz you.
Okay, good. Because then they start looking at my calendar and all kinds
because
of stuff.
The 31st, most of us for Mass are thinking about the octave day, the 8th day, which is the so New Year's Day, the solemnity of Mary, Mother of God.
Right.
Okay, and so if we're going to go to Mass that day, we're probably going to Mass that night for the anticipatory Mass, the Vigil Mass for the solemnity. But you could go to Mass in the morning if your parish offers a daily Mass for the 31st of December. And if you do that, you will celebrate the feast of
Dramatic pause.
Saint Sylvester the First.
And who is he?
Pope at the time that Christianity was legalized in the Roman Empire.
Ah, okay.
He
Lucky him.
initiated. So he became pope, I think, around 314, which was just after the year 313, 314 is when Constantine legalized Christianity.
Okay.
So persecutions stopped.
Uh-huh.
And Sylvester, right around that time, becomes pope, and he commissions the building of the Pope's Cathedral, actually in Rome, which is not St. Peter's.
Okay.
It's St. John Lateran.
Oh, right.
So it was a building that was already there that Constantine gave to the church. So Pope Sylvester the First makes this his cathedral in Rome. Holy Cross of Jerusalem is another church they commissioned. So he's pope then. Now, why do you suppose? Why would the church put somebody's feast day on the morning of December 31st? Like, who's really paying attention? People are getting ready for New Year's.
Maybe that's why they put him there, because maybe that's why no one knows who he is.
He was buried that day.
Oh. Don't they usually have saints' feast days the day they died?
We don't know for certain that he probably died that day as well.
Yeah.
But he died either that day or around the lists we have show that he was buried on the 31st.
Okay.
That time there was much there was some embalming, but
they didn't wait it. They didn't wait a week to have a funeral.
Exactly. No, they didn't. So he may very well have died that day as well.
Okay.
So those are the feast days on the octave.
Okay.
Okay. So this is who we're celebrating. But again, there are certain things that are happening every day, like the creed being proclaimed, like the Gloria being proclaimed, all as ways in which we are invited by the church to celebrate the feast of Christmas, but to prolong it. Mm-hmm. So another little detail that you'll see throughout the octave of Christmas, during the Eucharistic prayer, it talks on Christmas in the Eucharistic prayer. There's a little adjustment where it talks about how on this day, it talks about the incarnation. Well, throughout the octave, that same adjustment is made to talk about today.
Okay.
The today or that day being the day that Jesus
It's one of those little spots in the Eucharistic prayers where it has a parentheses.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But the point there is, I want to be clear, by the way, creed, Gloria for sure, maybe not the creed. That's the thing I'm not sure about. But Gloria for sure. So a little way of showing that we're today for the church in the octave, just as within Easter, if you pay the same thing, today the resurrection of the Lord, today he was born. So the day of Christmas for the church is prolonged liturgically for 8 days. After the 8 days are over, we're still celebrating the 12 days of Christmas. We're still celebrating after that, even the Christmas season for a little bit longer. But we are not, at that point, we are no longer talking about today being the day or that day on which he was born. Does that
Yeah, and
make a little bit
they
sense?
like leave the Advent wreath and stuff out too. Is that right?
I
can't remember.
That's a good question.
Maybe they don't. Because
I don't think the Advent wreath is left out. No, the Advent wreath is not left out. You made me pause and think there. Bill's looking over at us again. I don't know what that means.
He says no. No Advent wreath.
He's not
dummies.
on the show, was he? So, the octave of Christmas. Once again, your guess. Why? Why do we have octaves at all, do you think? No, in light of everything we've been talking about.
Well, to draw attention to and makes more special that day. Especially how I end that statement with a question mark.
Question mark? Yeah, I was just going to say, that was that day.
That's my best guess.
So even though you and I, because we don't really, even though like individual families, we may not celebrate it this way, the church in her liturgy does, and she invites us to prolong the Christmas, the Christmas celebration beyond the day. Okay. So again, most people think of the 12 days of Christmas if I'm going to do it, but really the octave has primacy.
Okay.
So we are invited by the church to live the Christmas mystery throughout the entire season, throughout the 12 days, but especially in those 8 days go ahead.
So could you like torture your children and just give them a present each day for the next 8 days?
You know what's funny? When I was growing up, neighbors, they got a gift. I think they got multiple gifts on Christmas, but then they also got a gift every day, and actually for the 12 days.
For the 12 days.
For the 12 days.
I don't know if that'd really be torture. That'd be kind of great for most kids. They'd be like, yes.
And actually, I've got a sister-in-law. Well, technically, she's my brother-in-law's wife. I've got a sister-in-law who's from Spain, and in Spain, it's actually Epiphany when they celebrate the giving of gifts. Do you know why, actually, real quick?
Because the wise men brought the gifts.
Exactly.
That makes more sense.
It does. It does. Then another little fun fact, Holy Innocents, why 2-year-old boys?
Because it was about 2 years after Jesus was born when the Magi came.
What?
So Herod's like, 2 years.
2 years. So did it come and see Jesus when he was newborn?
No, your nativity set is lying to you.
What? Yeah, that's true.
Isn't that terrible?
And that's a lot of people think that. We mash them all together.
Yeah.
But yeah, in fact, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. So Joseph and Mary would have found a home in Bethlehem. After Jesus was born, where, by the way?
Didn't you just say Bethlehem?
Yeah, but where?
Oh, in a stable.
Where?
Somewhere.
What's a stable?
It's like a barn.
Yeah. So where in the stable was he laid?
In a manger.
Which is a what?
Feeding trough, basically.
Yes.
I'm a farm girl. Come on.
What why remember we're still in the
like
Christmas octave.
mangers.
So we're still in the Christmas octave. So it's fine because we still have the nativity scenes up. He's laid in a manger. Why is that significant?
Because he is the bread of life. We've talked about this before, I think.
I think we have too.
Yeah. So I can't take credit for that, maybe.
So he is the bread of life. He nourishes you and me through the Holy Eucharist. Mm-hmm. So how fitting was it that his mother laid him in a feeding trough when he was born? It was out of practicality. He's like, there's no crib here.
Right.
Anyway, so he was born, but then at some point, Joseph and Mary, again, knowing... Mary knew because she heard it from Gabriel. Joseph knew because he heard it from Mary that Jesus was to be the Messiah. Mm-hmm. So, where does the Messiah come from?
The line of David. Is that where?
Right, and David's home is where again?
Bethlehem.
So they assume, well, we should probably we were living in Nazareth, but Jesus is supposed to come as the Messiah, come from Bethlehem. So presumably that's why. We don't know for certain.
Well, no, that was for the census, wasn't it?
Yeah, but why did they stay?
Oh, well,
for 2 years.
Who wants to haul a baby back to Nazareth? I mean, come on.
But
How
for
do
2
you like
years
driving
they
with
stayed.
your kids for like an hour? I mean,
no, it talks about it when in Matthew when the angels come, the Magi come. When the Magi come, do they come to a manger?
No.
They come.
They
to
come
a
to
home, a house.
So they stayed because Mary at least knew he was the Messiah, and so they stayed there. Okay.
So they presume that we don't know that for certain,
right? But
that seems like that's a good plausible explanation for why they ended up finding a home.
Or maybe he was really fussy and had colic and stuff.
Okay, but he's 2. Maybe that lasts for trust. It doesn't last that long.
Okay,
yes,
I don't have kids, but the terrible twos. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons to not travel to Nazareth by foot with a baby.
He's perfect, though. Now, come on. See, now you're just committing all sorts of heresies.
He's still fully human. So he doesn't cry?
Okay, that's not good. We talked about fully human last week. You should have asked that question then, but we've moved on. There's a lot we didn't talk about last week.
Yeah.
Did Jesus know he was God?
Yes.
Did he know when he was a baby?
I have no idea what babies
Could he
know when
speak
they're a
when
baby.
He was a baby?
No.
But he's God.
but he had to be a human.
Good job.
In other words, be quiet.
We're done. You're done now. Stop it. So we don't know for certain, but it's likely that may have been why. But anyway, we're told that the Magi came. It was not, as you said, to the manger. It was to the home. And why? Herod has boys 2 years of age and younger because that's how much later it had been.
Right.
He didn't know for certain.
Right. He just knew the star had been there for a certain amount or whatever, or however long the Magi said.
Exactly. So we've got 2 minutes left. Okay. Why are we talking about all this again?
Because it's Christmas, Octave of Christmas.
Who cares?
Well, we should care. Jesus was born and we want to celebrate it.
Why?
Well,
actually,
can we do so what?
We're on with why this time. Why for you? This is going to really make you think on your feet. Why for you? So we're recording this beforehand. How might knowing this for you impact how you celebrate the octave this year?
I can make cookies longer.
It's true.
I don't know. We usually leave our lights up and stuff and on and up through until the baptism.
Yes. So the Christmas season.
Yeah, we already.
But what about the octave?
Yeah, I need to find something to do during that time,
So
to kind of mark it.
Let me know what you figure out, because I too, what's a way? So I guess maybe this is an invitation. So if when you're listening to this, we're already partway through. It's the 28th or later of December as you listener are listening to this. But the remainder of this year's octave, or maybe you're an early planner, think about next year's octave, Christmas for next year. How can each of us celebrate this? The church gives us this octave for a reason, to enter deeply and intensely into the Christmas season. So maybe a good idea for all of us would be ask him. Maybe this is something, Renae, you and I are talking about this before Christmas. Maybe we could pray about as Christmas gets closer for us. But for you listening, maybe this year or next year, Lord, how can I celebrate this season, this octave more fully, and live the Christian mystery, especially over these 8 days, more intensely? Sound like a deal?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. And that will wrap up this episode of Ignition. Again, you can email us ignition@sfcatholic.org with any thoughts, questions, or ideas for future episodes. And until next time, dear listeners, may Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.